until 5 this morning. It's a little bit less than an hour it has to go. The ready for school forecast puts us at about 82 come at 3 o'clock, 79 or so for a lot of those inland valleys. And just a quick check into high temperatures. We project today, got some 70s finally working up there in the North Bay, some lower 80s as we see in the inland spots. Again, winds are going to return in this forecast. We'll talk about that coming up a little.
Been evacuated. It's not safe to go back in. A lot of those areas are still hot. And again, they say this morning, zero containment. They've also really clamped down to make sure that all of the properties that are still standing are not looted. That's a big concern this morning as well.
We also want to take you to Santa Rosa. KRON 4's Dan Kerman was there assessing the damage and the destruction left in the wake of these fires. Let's get his report now.
Michelle Martinez and her father spent Monday afternoon scouring through the rubble of their Santa Rosa home, looking for anything that was salvageable.
I hope that we can find more over there. I see like a little pot that hasn't burned that much yet.
The family lives along Crestview Drive, which saw total devastation. Most families had just minutes to escape as the flames headed toward them.
The whole garage was like filled with smoke. And basically when we went outside to leave in our cars, we saw this whole area over here on fire. The trees were all on fire. We knew that our house wasn't going to make it.
Monday afternoon, as the sun stared down on the rubble, families who lost their homes began contemplating what was next.
For tonight, I think we're going to stay with my sister.
And she's where?
She's by Corby Avenue.
Also in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, Santa Rosa. On that side, it seems to be okay for now.
And then what?
And then maybe go to look for a place to rent or something, I don't know.
For those who have lost their homes, lots of decisions ahead, no easy answers. In Santa Rosa, Dan Kerman, KRON 4 News.
And we want to continue to take a look at the damage again, as James said, because a lot of the people who live in these places have not been able to go back. Here you see a young man who was able to stand looking at what maybe was his home or a friend's home. A lot of people are calling their friends and relatives because there are so many people missing this morning. As we said, about 100 people are unaccounted for, and that is why officials have said that they fear it is likely that the death toll, which is 10 right now, is likely to rise.
Now, they are still registering people, the hundreds, even thousands that have shown up at various evacuation centers around the area. In fact, we've got a list of those centers for you now that we can share with you. And at least here's a map from Santa Rosa showing you the mandatory evacuation zones. You've got that larger section there. That's the area north of Steel Lane along Highway 101 on both sides of the freeway. And then that other stretch along Highway 12 that you see on the right side of the screen. In those areas of Santa Rosa, mandatory evacuations are underway, and the folks that are there have to make their way either to an evacuation shelter or to family and friends, some other accommodation, but they have to be out of that area. And once they are at those evacuation centers, as we discovered yesterday from our reporters in the field, they are registering people. They are producing those names on a list online, so you can check if your family or friends are among those that are missing, or at least you don't know their condition right now.
Right.
You can at least check that registry. Just go to the website safeandwell.org, safeandwell.org. And that's where you can find, hopefully, their name, and you'll know they're okay.
It is just incredible and horrible to see these burned out areas, neighborhoods that are just completely flattened with very little standing, as you can see, reduced to rubble and ash by this firestorm that really was propelled by strong winds. And there were up to 15 fires at points dotting all of these counties. We're warning you that we have, the banner going by there with things you need to know, like the boil water advisories that are in effect. And if you live in those areas affected by that, they've gotten the word out to you. Look at this, cars. There's a grill that is still standing, oddly enough, and everything else is gone. The metal is twisted and charred, but still there in a lot of these neighborhoods, but the homes built of wood are gone.
And we should probably also point out, too, that there is a curfew in effect that's been put in place by local authorities from 6:45 at night till 7:15 in the morning for that mandatory evacuation area. They don't want anybody out on the roads or walking through these neighborhoods. If they find you, they're going to question whether or not you have a right to be there. And if you don't have a residency in that evacuation area, then they're going to ask you to leave, or they may take you into custody, because they really are enforcing that from 6:45 at night until 7:15 in the morning.
Look at the chimney.
A curfew.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Just the chimney. Just just the chimney, which is an eerie sight,
Stands
considering
almost like a tombstone for the house.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at all the video and the images that we've seen, and that's what people who are in these shelters are dying to know. That you want to know, is my home still standing? And they have no idea. In a lot of cases, people are looking at the video and saying, I recognize that car, I recognize that house. Unfortunately, you know, mine was taken or not. Look, again, on the screen there, Napa, Monticello Park evacuated. There are fresh evacuations issued overnight because we're at zero containment. Should we take a look at the new evacuations in just Solano County here?
And this was just issued this morning, so we're staying really fluid with the broadcast this morning, updating you as information comes in, because obviously they're issuing new orders as this fire continues to progress during the overnight hours. So what you're looking at on your screen is the newly released mandatory evacuation area for Solano County, and that impacts portions of Napa, as you can see, stretching out in the direction of Fairfield. Not quite there yet, but it's on the other side of the ridge, not on the west side of the slopes heading down into the Napa Valley, but now on the eastern edge and side of the slopes as it burns down in the direction of Fairfield. Not impacting Fairfield yet.
And again, we're concerned about animals, as are the people who have to evacuate as well. And I had heard that they also have set up at the fairgrounds there an area where you can take, you know, livestock and animals. And the shelters have been very good about helping the pets when people show up that are displaced. They don't know how long they're going to be there. But these people, hundreds of them, are right now in shelters. We have been seeing people, again, get into areas. Sometimes it's hard to secure all of the areas, but they don't want people going back.
Right.
They really, it's smoldering. You can look at that video.
It's dangerous.
And there was a guy and his young boy there, and there's a bicycle. Wow. And this area is still actually hot in some cases.
Yeah, and a lot of these structures that were burned are still unstable, and they could collapse, and they don't want you anywhere near these structures if they do happen to come down. Time now is 4:12, and as you take a look at some of the distraught folks as they're working their way through the rubble of what once were their homes, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with our ongoing coverage here of the North Bay firestorms here in just a minute.
So many people have evacuated in this area of Rincon Valley. Earlier in the morning, I was up on the hill as flames just touched into roofs and set those on fire, burning those down to the ground. Certainly a situation that is surreal to say the least, and certainly very sad for so many people as they are facing their homes either destroyed or currently being threatened. Vicki and Steve.
All right, thank you, Teresa, for that. Yeah, as we were watching you right there and realizing that, you know, these are actually active fire areas, that everything we've been hearing, aside from the places that have been gutted out, and there's no fuel left for this fire anymore. It has moved on. And firefighters certainly have their hands full trying to put out some, 14 active wildfires just here in this area.
And I presume that Teresa is gone unless she's still in earshot. Because I know that there were a couple of schools that they were concerned about. Obviously, they said, you know, they closed off school in a lot of places in Sonoma, in Napa today. But Teresa, I'm curious, earlier today there was some concern that the Rincon Middle School might be threatened or might be in danger right near the Mary Carrillo High School. Any updates on structures that might still be in danger there, or is the fire pretty much removed from the neighborhood you're in?
The fire was removed from that middle school earlier, a couple hours ago. But when I came around the corner and I was right there next to the middle school, the flames were just on the other side of the road. And a lot of the homes that I took video, they were just behind the field across the street from the middle school. Some very tense times. I was talking to some residents and they said that they just grabbed whatever they could as fast as they could. They got in the car. And then as I was going into that neighborhood, some ambulances came by me, and they were going to a convalescent home that's in this area as well, and they started to evacuate all of these people who had medically compromised conditions. And so they wanted to get these people out, because I can't stress enough, it is very difficult to breathe here. You can see all the soot in the air, and if you have any kind of medical condition or any kind of asthma, that's certainly going to make matters worse by staying in this area.
Overall have burned in these fires in Napa, Sonoma, and Mendocino counties.
Let's go to Napa County right now. KRON 4's Rob Flattabo has been out there assessing the damage there. He brings us the update now.
This was Westgate Drive near the Silverado Country Club late this afternoon. At least a dozen homes burned to the ground here. The ruins still smoldering in many cases. Nothing left but chimneys and other masonry. Just around the corner on Cresta Drive, more of the same, as Napa County officials cannot begin to tally the toll of the still unfolding tragedy.
I just came back from the Silverado Country Club and Silverado Highlands community and certainly saw that there were many affected structures there, but we aren't at a moment right now where we can start the counting. We need to make sure we get the people out, we get them to safety, then we can start counting the people, and then we'll start counting the structures.
The flames in many cases sparked by trees that were blown down onto power lines that in turn sparked still more fires. Silverado Trail resident Michael Madden's home was spared, but his neighbors were not so fortunate, as Madden spent much of the day dousing hot spots.
I mean, we lost we have cars and Harleys and boats and all kinds of stuff, all gone. The house is the only thing that's left. And our neighbor right there lost everything.
Elsewhere, still more devastation as the fire showed little mercy, chasing frantic residents from their homes in the wee hours of the morning. Many of the evacuees and their pets finding food and shelter here at
12, as possibly as many as 15 active fires. It's
an
destroyed over
evacuation
1,500
center set up
structures
at Napa
so far.
Valley
But
Community
that number could
College.
rise.
All we could see was glowing red everywhere. Very scary because you didn't really know what direction it was from, but you could just see this glowing red sky all over.
First we thought, well, maybe it's something in the house that's on fire. And then we went downstairs, checked everything, came back up. And I thought, well, I'm going to open the sliding glass door. And when I opened it, I smelled the smoke. And I said, no, it's not the house. It's from somewhere else.
Trees, shrubs, and landscaping exploded into flames as the wind-whipped fires swept through the parched landscape. Dozens of vehicles also destroyed in the firestorm, as a few people could be seen standing amid the ruins in utter disbelief. Rob Flattabo, KRON 4 News.
And in addition to people's homes, there were so many businesses that have been destroyed by this fire. That's Kmart. And we watched this burn yesterday in the early morning hours. It was dark, and we could see that it looked like a large, maybe industrial building. That was a giant Kmart that is nothing but twisted rubble and metal this morning.
Just one of a number of businesses that were burned to the ground yesterday, along with all those residences as well, those homes. We've got the very latest now with Dave Spar on the weather for today and what we're expecting. So the weather forecast is something firefighters are going to be really acute to be updated on as we head into the morning. Hopefully today, a very different picture from what we had yesterday.
It is already. It's already cooler to start. We got a little bit more humidity here, and the winds have kind of died down for now. Now, we are expecting them to pick up again, and I'm going to show you this, but that's going to be more of an onshore variety. It's going to take another day to develop here a little bit, but winds are returning a little bit. There's a look at the breakdown for today. We do see lower temperatures already, as you can see. 77 by high noon for those inland valleys. 69 will do it around the bay and the coast into the 60s. Now, futurecast temperatures. Here we go this afternoon. We see the yellows not quite making the track that they did from yesterday. And we're only in the 70s and some 80s going on for the inland valleys, both in the North Bay and also in the East Bay. But then even tomorrow, dramatic more still as we have the onshore flow. That system up to the north brings in a different climate. Everybody gets pushed and shoved well in the 70s, and this does come with more humidity. Two things we want to hear: cooler temperatures and also more humidity. Futurecast winds. Now, late tonight, the winds start getting going, and overnight into very early tomorrow morning, which you see up here in the North Bay. This is onshore, but it still will be elevated winds getting into the 20s. Good coverage you can see up here to the North Bay, and then starting to get some of the East Bay involved in this as well. That'll be ushering in that weak little system kind of upstairs, bringing in some more of that marine layer and cooler temperatures along along with it. Checking the East Bay temperatures for us at 73 for Oakland. Hayward coming in 73 for a high today. Again, in the Inland Valley, some lower 80s still at work for today, but probably that'll be it after today. We'll take a little bit of a breather on that. 68 San Francisco, Oakland 73, San Jose at about 82. The 3-day forecast shows it's more of a 70 story and cooler temperatures coming our way in through the middle portion of the week. Checking Bay Area traffic. Robin, what's happening?
All right, let's check in on the Bay Bridge, Dave. We have a little bit of a backup at the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza. It's getting a little crowded here in the cash lanes on the right-hand side, but it's a minor wait. Overall, a great commute across the upper deck into downtown San Francisco. Heading over to 92, checking in on the San Mateo Bridge. It's a nice commute right now coming out of Hayward from the Nimitz onto 92. No problems across the span. An easy connection into Foster City, San Mateo, 101 and 280. Your connection right now clocking in at a very quick 12 minutes. All right, let's check in on Traffic Tracker. We are hotspot free. Your drive times are looking good. You're on time for West 4, 680 South, Dublin to Fremont. That's a quick 16-minute trip. No problems for
possible, but you can see all of the different vehicles off in the distance. So yes, firefighters are very busy, but officers are very busy as well. And I just want to pan back over to show you that Hilton Hotel again, which tonight, here we are, hours later, a day later, and it is still burning right now. Steve and Pam, now back to you in the studio.
Guys, you're right in the thick of things there, JR. And for people who are possibly just tuning in right now, I want to remind them that Kaiser Permanente had been evacuated earlier for fear of them being subject to the kind of flames that you're showing us with the Hilton right there. We know that the new Sutter Health was kind of brand new facility there in the Santa Rosa area. That one got evacuated. The vehicles you just saw going back, are those just police vehicles or were some of them ambulances? I'm curious.
It's possible there was an ambulance. I believe those were all police vehicles, but I have seen some.
We're hoping that we don't see as many flare-ups today, but because there's zero containment on the fires that are still burning, we don't want to see any new ones break out.
Yeah, it's a scary situation still this morning. We've got KRON 4's Will Trent. In fact, he's in Santa Rosa at a newly designated evacuation area. Let's get the latest from him now. So, Will, this is new this morning. What are you learning?
Right now, I'm at White Oak Drive. It's a gated community. Everybody has been evacuated. It is dark other than the fires as well as the media. You can see over my left shoulder the fire still burning on this ridge. I can hear crackling in the background. It continues to burn, so-called out of control, but let me just give you a little caveat. It's still being monitored by many fire trucks along the way here. So they are parked all along White Oak Drive, which is a few miles just to get to this location off the main road. If anything should spread, obviously they will pounce on the situation as quickly as possible. The homes in this area we thought might have suffered damage or destroyed, but talking to the authorities coming up here, they said the homes are fine for now. But of course, anything can change. The conditions obviously still very smoky, albeit not as bad as what we saw 24 hours ago. So even though it's 0% containment, it looks like the smoke has died down just a bit as far as how strong it is. The winds are not here. You don't see anything moving on my jacket or my hair at all. I can tell you that it is calm for now. The CAL FIRE spokespeople, they should have a news conference a little bit later this morning, as they typically do on any fire, but especially on fires like this one. They will have a news conference to give us the very latest numbers. We're sitting at 65,000 acres burned among the 5 major wildfires. That number is expected to go up, and we're still sitting at 1,500 buildings and residential homes that were destroyed or badly damaged, and that number unfortunately expected to go up as well. So it is dark, and what they usually do in the overnight hours, they do not attack the fire. They're fearful that anything could possibly happen to their firefighters in terms of injuries or deaths, because they don't know what they're stepping on. There could be holes in the ground. So what they usually do in the overnight hours is monitor the situation, which is exactly what they are doing. Should they need aircraft, they will have that available to them when the light comes up. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Will. I'm almost afraid for the light to come up. I mean, seriously, this stuff looks like it's been bombed, you know? I mean, this looks like a war field. That Hilton sign was standing and the hotel is gone. Look, there's an odd sign where you see a real estate sign. And, it says it all, from homes to hotels, mansions to mobile home parks, businesses, wineries, vineyards, you name it. Just so much destruction, pile upon pile upon pile of just ruins.
Yeah. Well, and you said there's the personal toll, then there's the economic toll. Once you factor in all those businesses, the wineries, the dollar figure for damage done by this fire is going to be incredibly huge. Here's another before and after picture, by the way.
I was just going to say, is that a before and after? It's hard to believe. That is a before and after picture of a fire station. A fire station.
In Santa Rosa, and you can see obviously on the left.
A better look there.
Here's a better look at what it looked like before the fire, and then again after the fire. There's nothing much left of that, and that again just epitomizes what we're seeing time and again across a good bit of not only northern Santa Rosa but also in the hills of Napa and Sonoma as well.
Look, while they're out fighting fires, their home, so to speak, was burnt to the ground, and that's the story that we hear repeated. A lot of people trying to help others in Safari West, which we talked about so much yesterday. The story was the groundskeeper who lives there ignored his own home, hosed down the area and saved the animals.
Saved the animals, but at the cost of his own house. That burned to the ground while he was out there trying to protect the animals. It's a touching story. With, you'd like to say a happy ending, but it really is a bittersweet one.
I think that the people this morning are happy to be alive. I mean, when they look at the destruction and on the TV, and see what's left of it, they are, the despair and the heartache is overwhelming, but the fact that they have escaped with their lives is lucky, because there are 10 people dead and many more in jeopardy this morning, because we do not know. We have 100 unaccounted for.
Yeah, still missing this morning. Hopefully they'll be accounted for at some of the evacuation centers that have been set up around the area. And here again, a shot from a vineyard looking out at the ridge line in the distance, with all that fire eating its way up and over the ridge and down into the valley where all these businesses and homes are. And
look at the sky on fire. It looks like the sky is on fire when you get that view right there. And above these grape plants, and there are about 100,000 acres of wine grapes over 2 counties there, and 650 wineries. And we do know that wine grapes were lost, that some vineyards were lost. And that's going to have, like you said, an economic effect and a business effect. And I think it's hard to focus on anything but just the lives and the personal stories of people this morning in their homes.
Time now 4:27. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more of our coverage here in just a minute. Stay with us.
That our house wasn't going to make it.
Monday afternoon, as the sun stared down on the rubble, families who lost their homes began contemplating what was next.
For tonight, I think we're going to stay with my sister.
She's where?
She's by Corby Avenue.
Also in Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa. On that side, it seems to be okay for now.
And then what?
And then maybe go to look for a place to rent or something. I don't know.
It's a lot to contemplate all at once right now. We can tell you that even though this whole area has been wiped out, there are still little fires, as you can see behind me, continuing to burn. Firefighters battling the main part of the fire, but as we see, fire trucks will move through the area now and again to keep an eye on things and see what's going on in this area. But again, just in this general area, there is nothing that is still standing.
This was Westgate Drive near the Silverado Country Club late this afternoon. At least a dozen homes burned to the ground here. The ruins still smoldering in many cases. Nothing left but chimneys and other masonry. Just around the corner on Cresta Drive, more of the same, as Napa County officials cannot begin to tally the toll of the still unfolding tragedy.
I just came back from the Silverado Country Club and Silverado Highlands community, and certainly saw that there were many affected structures there, but we aren't at a moment right now where we can start the counting. We need to make sure we get the people out, we get them to safety, then we can start counting the people, and then we'll start counting the structures.
The flames in many cases sparked by trees that were blown down onto power lines that in turn sparked still more fires. Silverado Trail resident Michael Madden's home was spared, but his neighbors were not so fortunate, as Madden spent much of the day dousing hot spots.
I mean, we lost we have cars and Harleys and boats and all kinds.
Back time now, 4:30. Our breaking news story this morning continues to be the fire and the devastation in the wake of the flames across the North Bay. This is video out of Santa Rosa this morning, and if you're just joining us, here's the latest on what we know so far. Sad to say, 10 people have been confirmed killed by these fires, the majority of those deaths occurring in Sonoma County. 100 people still unaccounted for. That doesn't mean that they've been killed or injured or anything like that. They're just not accounted for. Either friends and family haven't found them yet, and we haven't identified them yet at an evacuation center. That could just be a paperwork issue where they haven't registered them yet. So we'll hope for that number to go down, hopefully.
But unfortunately, the officials said yesterday that they haven't gotten into a lot of these burned out areas. Some of them are remote, and that they do expect that there may be more victims who lost their lives in this destructive fire, and there may be well over 1,500 homes destroyed as well. It's hard to get a count. They can't focus on that now.
Right.
They're still trying to zero containment. They're trying to put these fires out.
Which it's huge at this point, more than 60,000 acres in size in all. Right, we're talking about 4 or 5 separate fires, large fires that are burning right now across 2 counties.
And interestingly enough, as you look at the 60,000 acres on the right of your screen and you see the damage in Santa Rosa on the left, that's one of the very smallest fires out of the 5. And yet it was the most devastating as far as homes. Obviously, it's more of a city. A lot of people live there versus the rural areas. This is another shot of Santa Rosa, and this has a lot more brush and foliage in that area.
And we saw yesterday the traffic jam on 101 as all those folks in Santa Rosa were fleeing down to places like Petaluma, where they were working their way towards evacuation shelters. In fact, that's where KRON 4's Ella Sagamonian had a chance to catch up with some of them and get their story.
Here in the North Bay, there's been an outpouring of support from community members. Those who haven't been affected by the fire are doing what they can to help the neighbors that unfortunately have lost everything, or those that don't know what may have happened to their homes, as they have now been evacuated to more than a dozen different shelters across the area that are taking them in for the night. And who knows, could be longer than that, considering that this fire is still very active.
Oh, I don't want to be here for another day. No, I want to go home tomorrow.
The sudden outbreak of 14 fires across the North Bay has turned the world upside down for thousands of evacuees. Many are braving face for their kids, but all are grateful for the outpour of community support.
This is amazing. The first person who came up to me the volunteer asked me if she could get anything for me, and I said a hug. And after trying to, keep my cool for these ones, as soon as she hugged me, that's when I started to cry.
There are dozens of spaces that have welcomed them into pop-up shelters. In Petaluma, the Veterans Hall is housing 300 people at this time and have room for 100 more. They're providing food, donated clothes, charging stations for loved ones to reconnect with family by phone, and more.
I'm just shocked how it just happened. It just came out of nowhere. All of a sudden I'm just sitting watching TV, and then I hear breaking news. Oh my God, there's a fire. You're probably gonna have to evacuate. So I didn't know what I was thinking. It was just crazy.
They say they've got enough volunteers for the night, but are in desperate need of cots, an amenity that many are looking for. And unfortunately, looters are taking advantage of this situation and taking the property of people who have had to leave everything behind. So that's yet another concern of the survivors out here who have been evacuated at different shelters across the North Bay. And the police has enforced a mandatory curfew from sundown to sunrise because of that. In Santa Rosa, Ella Sagamonian, KRON 4 News.
All right, and let's take a look at some of the evacuation centers, including where Ella Sagamonian was. But let's first start with Solano County and the evacuation areas there.
And this is new this morning, by the way.
Overnight. Don't think that, that we're in a rebuilding or assessing stage at all. They're still rescuing, recovering, and putting out flames.
Yeah, so this is on the eastern slopes of the hills there in Napa County, going down into Solano County. And that's that new area there outlined in magenta. So if you're you're in that area and you're listening to our broadcast or watching our broadcast this morning, just know that officials would like you to begin your evacuation process now. This is, they're calling it the Green Valley area. So that is in Solano County this morning. We also have evacuations still underway, or mandatory evacuation areas in Santa Rosa. And those are those two areas that you see outlined in red on your map. Section of northern Santa Rosa from Steel Lane on north, both sides of the freeway. And then you see that separate section there along Highway 12. If you live in that area, you're also being asked to evacuate as well, as the fire is now becoming a danger to you.
Yeah, we're looking at what started as one fire, whipped by the winds and embers carried miles away, went into basically a chain of fires that dotted the North Bay, 15 different fires forming basically 5 fire areas in those various counties.
And so you see those areas on your screen. Will Tran is in Santa Rosa, the Nuns fire this morning, where he's been assessing some of the damaged areas. In fact, he's in one of the newly designated evacuation areas, the Wild Oak neighborhood. Let's get the latest from him now. Will?
James, the fire still burns right behind me on that ridge line. We'll zoom in and you can see the fires maybe 3 to 4 feet high. I can hear crackling in the background. The fire will continue to burn without anybody dousing any water on it. Usually what they usually do in the overnight hours, they do not attack the fire. They have set up a perimeter, hoping that it does not spread any further. And then once the sun comes up, they will have the crews back out here physically down there walking around with hoses to try to put it out. This is a gated community. There are nice homes here. I can tell you there are plenty of fire trucks all along the route to get to this location, which is about 3 to 4 miles off the main road. They have their fire trucks parked in people's driveways in case anything should happen. If the embers fly to homes, they can rush there immediately and put out the damage to those homes. As far as the homes here, driving up here, yes, it is dark, but it appears that the homes are intact and are safe at this time. What's a little bit different this morning than it was 24 hours ago, absolutely, you can still smell the smoke in the air as soon as you get here. You step out of your car and it hits you, but it is not as powerful as what we've smelled yesterday, and definitely not as windy. What's going to happen maybe in about 2.5 hours from now, they will have another briefing, as they usually do in the morning time. They'll have a briefing. Crews that were spent the night in the ridge lines and on the hills will come down, change of shift, and then at that time they will talk to those crews to find out the acreage and what needs to be done. Right now we're still sitting at 65,000 acres burned among the 5 fires. 1,500 homes either badly damaged or destroyed, 1,500 homes and buildings. So that number will stay the same for at least another couple of hours. But unfortunately, guys, they do expect those numbers to go up. In the meantime, the fire is still burning, not badly, although it just runs along the ridge line here. There are fire crews not just along the route here just to get to this location. There are also fire crews on the other side of the ridge line, just in case the embers fly up and attack those new areas as well. Back to you.
Look at that. And Will, you know, it's sad but true that this fire was the great equalizer. You're looking at a neighborhood that you said has these mansions, and we've seen plenty of giant mansions go up in flames and burn to the ground, and we've seen mobile home parks burn as well. I mean, this fire doesn't discriminate. It's just leveled areas that are, you know, densely packed, like you were in with the mobile homes and the subdivisions, or these big giant areas where people are surrounded by mountains and lush, you know, trees.
Absolutely, the fire doesn't care. What's a little bit different than, say, yesterday, for those who are into conspiracy theories, that why are they protecting these homes as opposed to the mobile homes? Well, in case you're wondering, now they have a handle on it. It's over 24 hours long, so now they have the crews. They've been able to call backup, which is why you see the fire trucks along the line here. We must have counted maybe 4 or 5 fire trucks parked along the way in people's driveways. Yesterday, they were simply overwhelmed. Not that they didn't care about the mobile home parks, but they were so stretched thin that they could not get there quickly enough to throw all the resources that they could possibly use to those areas. So for those, and I'm sure people will take to social media or talk at the coffee shop why they're protecting these mansions, it's not because they care more about them than people who live in the mobile home parks. It's just now 24 hours into it, they have a game plan.
Well, no, and you were in the mobile home parks and you see how close they are together, and the subdivisions. Those homes are very close together, and the fire can rip through the whole block very quickly.
No, these homes are no different than the mobile home parks. Absolutely, Daria, very astute of you. I mean, this is no different than, say, the Bay Area. These homes, yes, they're very nice. A lot of them have brick exterior, but they're right next to each other, long driveways. You know, and I know, fires don't care what they burn. If it gets its hands on those homes and it's not jumped on immediately, those homes, just like what we saw, those mobile homes yesterday, will go up in flames.
Yeah. All right, thanks a lot. We'll check in with Will, and you can see with the fire actively burning, Dave, behind him, that the concerns
and the big
win.
difference was compared to yesterday,
Yeah.
we don't have all those embers that are whipping sideways in the screen because the winds were so strong.
Yeah.
Now it's just sort of a slow, gradual burn that's behind him. It's not that wild scene that we saw yesterday.
All the elements are much better today. This is a good working day. The wind's taken out of the equation. The air is much more moist in cooler temperatures.
Yeah.
Everything going in tandem. However, there is a bit of an onshore wind that will pick up in the North Bay by late tonight, very early tomorrow morning. They'll be more localized and coming from a different direction. A quick check into Bay Area temperatures. We see the 40s up here in the North Bay. Santa Rafael at 61, 60 for San Francisco. We compare that with 24 hours ago. We're still some double digits, as you can see, cooler this morning than yesterday. Napa, some 23 degrees cooler this morning. Nevada, about -9. Don't forget that was an offshore wind to provide some little extra heating with all of that. We still have the red flag warning technically now for another about 20 minutes or so. It's still somewhat of a dry atmosphere, although it's improved. Not the air quality yet, however. Very unhealthy and for sensitive groups, both of the North Bay, Coast, and Bay. It's really the East Bay and the South Bay we see moderate. A look ahead of what we're talking about. It's still some smoke left over and haze. Cooler today, not as dry. Then late in the week, the onshore winds do kick up again, still not as warm. And as we get to the latter portion of the weekend, the 80s return back inland. It's a little bit of a warm up. It starts to happen. Next 8 hours, we're up to about 77 come high noon. 69 will do it in and around the immediate bay. Checking with Bay Area traffic right now. Robin, what's going on there?
Well, it's getting a little crowded, Dave. Heading into San Francisco, some of the cash lanes are sluggish here at the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza. It's not a major backup. It's just a sign that traffic is picking up here heading into San Francisco, but it's still quiet, and I don't see any major trouble spots on westbound 80. What about westbound 580, that ride from the East Bay to the North Bay by way of the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge? It's looking good. Here's a live look. You see a few cars rolling through the tolls. Your drive time less than 10 minutes. All right, checking in on Traffic Tracker. No major accidents working right now. It'll start to really pick up within the next hour or so. So now it's the best time to go ahead and commute and make that trip to work. 680 Pacheco to Danville, 12 minutes. 24 looks really good. Out of Walnut Creek, Lafayette, Orinda, over to the Caldecott into Oakland. No problems from the Upper East Shore, mid to Lower East Shore heading west. And 880, a good ride so far. 7 minutes for the northbound commute from San Jose to 237 in Milpitas. Daria, James.
Thanks a lot, Robin. And Southern California, they've got the same story there. Look at this. Anaheim, in the hills, they've got a wind-driven brush fire that raced through Orange County cities. And so far, 6,000 acres have been charred, and several homes have been lost there as well.
And one of the questions we asked this morning was, is this anywhere near Disneyland? A lot of people associate Anaheim with Disneyland.
Right.
No, this is quite a ways away. This is off well to the east and higher in the hills. So the park itself not in jeopardy.
They had a similar situation where yesterday morning, about the time we were covering our story and how our fire jumped Highway 101 in Santa Rosa, and around 10 o'clock yesterday, the eastbound 91 freeway near the 241 interchange, the fire, that's where they first responded, and then it jumped their fire lines there. It jumped the 241 freeway, and it spread over there, which was very densely populated. So you can see the glow, a very familiar sight. Horrible, horrible situation right now. With actually, if you look at the entire country, there are millions of acres on fire right now, and we understand that we are so stressed trying to keep up with our fires, our fire departments, and we've got firefighters responding from all over, and there are many other fires burning as well.
Yeah, man, the pictures are almost identical with homes on fire down south and here as well. This is video out of Santa Rosa this morning, or not this morning, but yesterday. And again, as we continue to track the latest with the fires this morning, we're walking through, and you can see the information there at the bottom of the screen. Boil water advisories in effect. Are in areas that saw fire seeping down into the groundwater and impacting what you get out of the tap. So they're asking you to boil your water before drinking.
Look at that. Look at those flames, and then a home that it has not been consumed behind it.
Yeah.
And that's the story that we've seen. While sometimes we see entire city blocks leveled and just decimated, there are other homes standing sometimes in the middle of the rubble. That's just the way the fire was, because it was whipped by the wind. These embers are what started everything.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more coverage in just a minute.
I don't know. I can't even describe it. It's horrible. It's heartbreaking too. I mean, talking to my mom on the phone, like, just her being so upset that we lost everything, all our memories. Like, I mean, like, my mom and my brother work from home. Like, they can't do their jobs now. They're displaced. Like, I don't know what my family's gonna do. And we have a bunch of family pets and all the stuff that they have with them. Like, I don't know where they're gonna go. And I mean, it's still burning. This is horrible to look at. Like, it's like watching my neighborhood go through the end of the world.
Devastating loss echoing across thousands and thousands of families across the North Bay. Police have a curfew in place until sunrise. It began at 6:45 p.m. tonight in Santa Rosa. They are trying to keep the roads clean and straight for first responders, but they're also trying to avoid looters who may be deciding to take advantage of this opportunity to break into homes. They say if they find anyone breaking in, they will be arrested.
Hundreds of North Bay residents have been forced out of their homes, many spending the night at one of the many evacuation centers that have been set up. We talked to some of the people staying at one of Napa's emergency shelters today. This is what they had to say.
We live in an area called Monticello Park. It's just a little south of Silverado Country Club. And all we could see was glowing red everywhere. Very scary. You couldn't really know what direction it was from, you know. But you could just see this glowing red sky all over.
We had a phone call from our neighbor who said, we're packing up our car and we're leaving. And the next thing I knew, we woke up and got dressed and went outside, and the sheriff's department was all over knocking on doors, tying a ribbon around the tree that they knew the house was not occupied. So then we came down here, as I said, at 5 o'clock, and been here ever since.
We got to sleep around 3.
Done in Santa Rosa, where you can see we've got a number of homes that have been reduced to rubble, and in many cases still on fire this morning, and in some cases with gas mains still sending up jets of fire until PG&E crews can get out there and turn off gas to some of these neighborhoods. So it's still a very dangerous situation, and that's why they have that overnight curfew in place. It doesn't expire until about 7:15 this morning. Right. Yeah, 7:15 it expires, so you are not allowed to be in those damaged areas.
I hate even to say they've already seen some looting. They have.
Some of that going on too.
And you look at these neighborhoods and you say, really, it's other areas that, you know, have something left to loot, which is sad and sick. But this is what we're seeing this morning, and this is why they don't want you going back into neighborhoods to see if your house is standing, because there are these hot spots, and it's dangerous for people to go back, and as you pointed out, unstable too.
So we've got that situation in Santa Rosa. We also have some new video too. I don't know if it's ready yet to show, but we'll show it to you here in a second. There's a new video out of Napa as well. Oh, here's some video, new video of a restaurant in Santa Rosa where you can see extreme damage done that, and obviously they're going to have to rebuild from the ground up.
Right, and we talked about the businesses, and when you said, you know, danger, I was thinking of the ultimate danger with that gun shop yesterday that burned to the ground and the ammunition was going off, and they were really concerned about the hospital because they have these tanks, and they were very concerned at one point, but they were able to save the hospital and all the patients, by the way, from the 2 major hospitals there. They got them all out, except for they couldn't transport some, like women in labor.
Right, some of the most critical care patients.
But really, really good news on that front. And like you said, they were stretched so thin, the firefighters, emergency responders, that it's great they were able to do that. But the sad and grim task continues today of going into some of these areas that are or had been inaccessible and seeing if anyone else was killed by the flames.
And we've been told to prepare ourselves for that death toll too. go up. Right now it stands at 10, unfortunately. We've got Chrome 4's Will Tran up in Santa Rosa as well, and he documented for us that Herculean effort at Kaiser in Santa Rosa as they were evacuating all those patients. This morning he's standing by at one of the newly designated evacuation areas with the Wild Oak neighborhood along Highway 12 there in the northeastern part of Santa Rosa. Let's go to him now. And so, Will, last we checked with you, those fires were still burning behind you. Looks like they still are.
They still are. It looks like, if anything, the smoke smell has gotten stronger, and I can definitely hear the crackling in the background. You can see the fire is along the ridge line here. No one is attacking it, and they usually do not attack it in the overnight hours. Simply too dangerous. Firefighters could fall, get hurt. They just don't know what they're fighting, so they usually monitor the situation, which is why we saw a lot of fire trucks parked along the roadway in people's driveways in this gated community. Should the embers fly from this location to these mansions, they'll be able to jump on it much faster than they did yesterday with the mobile home park because they were so stretched thin. They're going to have a news conference maybe in 2.5 hours from now to give us new numbers. Unfortunately, it appears those numbers will go up in the overnight hours once those crews that spent the night in the hills on the ridge line will come down and then talk to their commanders. Right now, we're sitting at 1,500 homes and commercial buildings either badly damaged or destroyed. 65,000 acres burned among the 5 fires. As far as the mansions here, all the mansions are intact. They do not appear to have any damage. The lights are out. There are plenty of police officers along the main road as there is still a curfew in place. So only the media as well as the authorities are allowed to roam around this area. We are mobile. Our live shot or live truck is parked right down the road. Should anything happen here, and it's calm now, yes, it's smoky, but it is not windy. Should anything, guys, that we are prepared to run away from the scene, but right now it appears to be in a very good condition as far as no winds, and that's a good sign, not just for us, but good for the firefighters because the embers cannot carry from this location.
You know what? I don't know if I trust your judgment, Will.
We saw yesterday.
I don't know if I trust your judgment, Will, to run when you need to run. Yesterday, you were outside of the gun shop, and someone had to tell you to leave. You heard the popping. You heard the popping from the ammunition. Okay, Will, so I think we may ask the firefighters to tell you when to leave, or we may tell you when to leave.
Well, the good part is I didn't eat any breakfast, so I'm not that heavy. So if I need to be carried by the firefighters, then they'll carry me away because we worked round the clock. Crom 4 had you covered all day yesterday, so I think I lost a few pounds for the viewers, as I'm sure all of you guys did a great job yesterday as well.
All right, well, see, thank you, Will. Always, with a sense of humor, but I'm serious.
Well, you gotta laugh to keep from crying.
This is true, too.
Like this.
Just people have this huge sense of relief that they're alive, even when they've seen, that they've lost everything, but they have their lives, and that's the story. When you look at this glow,
look at some of these shots.
It was eerie. It was like we were under siege.
Look at that. It almost looks like lava coming down a hill.
It does look like that. It looks like a volcano or an inferno, and to see it at night like that, and people running in the middle of the night, something about the fact that, you didn't know where it was. The flames seemed like they were surrounding you, and you couldn't tell. In the light of day, it was easier to kind of get a grasp in your head of to wrap your head around what was happening, but this was just so frightening.
Even in the light of day yesterday, it took a while for that to happen because all that smoke up there kept it looking like it was nighttime, even well after sunrise.
That's true, too. So this, wait, what is from moments ago? And James, and we were thinking this is showing you highlights from yesterday morning in the dark. This is this morning. This is overnight. These are new pictures.
So we were told we had new pictures on the way, so these are it.
And this is scary, too, because you feel like, so much has been burned out. And is it over yet?
Right.
Is it over yet? Now, can we
Clearly not.
Talk about rebuilding and moving in and checking damage? Absolutely not. This is new. This is from tonight or last night.
So this is the situation up in the hills. Dave Spar checking conditions on the weather front. And like Will said, the good news is he's not sensing that wind that we had yesterday.
Exactly, and that's going to be the case for today. We got cooler temperatures also and a little bit more humidity sneaking into here. So it looks like a good working day, taking some of the pressure off all of this. However, However, I want to start with the winds real quick because I want to show you that they are going to return. They're going to be onshore, starting up here in the North Bay, as you can see. Now, this is about 24 hours from now, so this is now very early Wednesday morning. They will spread out to the peninsula, you can see there as well. One of the advantages to this, hopefully, if we can really get a lot of progress done today, is this will help clean out the atmosphere a little bit. However, with whatever's left over, it'll be wind still, although it will be a more humid wind coming in from the coast. Your 4-zone forecast today checks in like this: 73 for Oakland and Hayward. Jumping over the East Bay Hills, we're into lower 80s territory. That's going to drop off to the 70s probably as early as tomorrow. To the South Bay, we're to 80 for Mountain View and Cupertino, looks like. San Jose, 82 in Milpitas and Santa Clara. Sunnyvale at about 80. Heading to San Francisco, we're looking at 68 for a high. Mission District at about 70. To SFO at 69. 66 Pacifica. 68 for Daly City with 75 Redwood City. And the North Bay at 81 Petaluma, Novato. Again, these numbers dropping by tomorrow. Napa at 78. Vallejo 77. 81 coming in for Sonoma. Mild on the winds for today. There's a look at that 7-day forecast, and it looks like by the weekend, a little bit of a warm-up coming our way yet again. Checking Bay Area traffic. Robin, what's happening?
There is a little bit of a slowdown coming your way. If you're heading into San Francisco, it's going to be crowded in the cache lanes here on the right-hand side. It's backing up, but it's not a bad commute. So if you plan on leaving now, do expect a minor wait or just merge over to the left or right down the middle. If you have fast track, it is less than 10 minutes for the drive in. Here's a crash leaving San Francisco. This is on the lower deck, eastbound before the tunnel. Just got a word of an accident there involving a couple of vehicles that has the right lane blocked. No major delays so far, but just be on the lookout for it. All right, let's head over to 92, checking in on the San Mateo Bridge. No big trouble spots here. Westbound, it's just a little crowded on the flat section. 12 minutes to connect to 101. The Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, no big trouble spots. A good ride heading into the North Bay. Golden Gate still at the limit in both directions. And checking in on Traffic Tracker, it's looking pretty good so far. We still have green all around, which means traffic is at the limit for the East Shore Freeway. Crockett down to Oakland. 24 looks pretty smooth out of Walnut Creek to the Caldecott. 580, a nice ride. And the Nimitz, no troubles if you have to head north. Right now it's clocking in at about 11 minutes to work your way from 238 into downtown Oakland. Coming up, I'll check in on some more drive times. We'll take a look at the South Bay. We'll check in on 101 and 280 as well. And I'll have another traffic check coming up in a bit. Back to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Robin. Let's take a look at more of the damage. I don't even know what that was. I mean, it all looks just like a mangled, rubbly, ashy mess.
And you were talking about how emergency personnel from all around were coming in to help areas in Santa Rosa. That was just a patrol car from Novato. And we heard about police and fire personnel from all around the Bay Area descending on the North Bay to help out. As we've been talking about, the crews there have been stretched so thin, just trying to get to enough neighborhoods to get the word out to evacuate, let alone stand and fight the fire that was descending on the northern part of the city.
And you can see the fire still actively burning in this video, but that's the case this morning with the fires at 0% containment, 5 different areas of the North Bay on fire, and 5 fires that have been deadly, 10 dead already, and the count is expected to go up, and more than 60,000 acres and counting.
And it goes without saying, as I'm sure a lot of parents already know, no school at all in Napa and Sonoma County today. All classes canceled as folks are trying to deal with this fire, which is still burning, still growing. As Daria mentioned, out of control this morning. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with our continuing coverage in just a moment.
Completely upright, and the one next to it burned to ashes. Several businesses, including stores, hotels, and restaurants, have also burned down in Santa Rosa. One of the guys that has lived in the neighborhood, in the Coffee Park neighborhood for a long time, tells me this fire has destroyed the landscape of Santa Rosa as he knows it. Unfortunately, a lot of people, especially in this Coffee Park neighborhood that live here, will be coming home from little to nothing. Parts of Napa and Sonoma were also badly affected. I spoke with people who were leaving their homes because they literally saw the flames coming towards them.
About 10:30, just looked out the window. It looked like all of Atlas Peak was on fire. And then we thought, well, maybe it was going to go over the ridge to Soda Canyon. Kind of took it easy and took a little rest, and then got a phone call from my son about midnight and said, "You got to get out of there. You just got to get out." And we just started packing up some photographs and a few valuable pictures and just headed out. And it was panic mode. Just wanted to get out quick. Went through the fire in 1980 up in Atlas Peak and lost our home at that time, and just prayed that
it didn't happen again.
Got our dogs, and just happy to be alive, and just so sorry. It's just devastating. It's surreal.
Live right now again.
Again, the devastation is massive behind me. I'm told there once were dozens of homes. It's dark right now, but it's likely once the sun comes up, we'll see there's not much the fire didn't touch. Reporting live in Santa Rosa, Hermela Aragawi, Cron 4 News.
Thank you, Hermela. As we've been telling you, so many neighborhoods of Santa Rosa have been completely wiped out, but there were some lucky people who still do have a home to go.
Cron 4 News starts now with breaking news.
If you went to bed last night and you thought the worst was over, it's not. These are new pictures of the fires that are still burning in the North Bay, out of control this morning.
I mean, just looking at these aerial shots down on the hillside, I mentioned earlier, it looks like that shot in particular, looks like a volcano with lava coming down the hills. At night, that's the image that comes to my mind when I see that.
Yeah, and that is what's happening, is these flames are racing down hills, through neighborhoods, jumping freeways like they did yesterday. We're concerned for more neighborhoods. There are new evacuations just out this morning.
And we'll get to that here in a second. If you're just joining us, here's a quick update on what we know so far as we take a look at some of the damage video from Santa Rosa yesterday. Again, as Daria mentioned, unfortunately, 10 people confirmed killed. And unfortunately, we're told to expect that number to rise as first responders begin the process of going into some of these more remote neighborhoods where they haven't had a chance yet to go home to check if there are any other victims out there.
And we have 1,500 homes destroyed. But again, that number is expected to rise once they can get a look. But at this point, they're not letting residents back in to get a look, nor are they at the point where they're counting structures burned. We just know that they are homes, hotels, businesses, vineyards, you name it, entire mobile home parks, as we saw yesterday. So they are going to concern themselves first with stopping these flames from advancing and rescuing and recovering people. That is their job again today, as 60,000 acres plus have burned in all these different fires, a chain of fires, more than a dozen fires that form in basically 5 major fire areas.
And just to think that in less than a day, it went from 0 to 60,000 acres in size. It's just a testament to how fast these flames were moving, how strong the winds were yesterday, and how quickly, racing against the clock, first responders were efforting, trying to get in all these neighborhoods to get people out in time. They literally were racing just ahead of the flames to get these people to pack up and get to safety fast.
And in many cases, people just left with the clothes on their back and maybe their pets. Some took their car keys, and as you can see, some left their cars there to burn. But look at this one home standing, the rest of that block flattened. These people are out, not recommended. In fact, there's a curfew still in effect right now this morning. They don't want people going out because they want to prevent, number one, for safety, and number 2, for looting.
And we actually have, as Daria mentioned at the top of the hour, a new evacuation area to tell you about this morning, this time now in Solano County. So there were evacuation areas in Sonoma County and Napa County, and now on the eastern mountains there from Napa down in toward the direction of Fairfield. We have that section outlined now in Solano County where the flames are beginning to threaten folks who live in that area. So you're being told now, if you're watching this morning, emergency personnel want you to pack up now and start making an orderly exit out of that area and head to an evacuation area or friends and family somewhere else, because the flames are getting too dangerous in that section now that's been identified this morning.
And let's take a look at the other evacuation areas as well. This through Santa Rosa, the 2 major areas outlined in red there, where people, as we know, got out with just the clothes on their back, and many are in this morning waking up in shelters, friends' house. They mostly have have gone down a little bit further into northern Marin County.
Yeah, all the way down to San Rafael, in fact, in some
Nevada
of those
and
evacuation
San
areas. And so you see those two areas, the larger area on the left, that's the evacuation zone that we knew about yesterday. On the right, though, along Highway 12, that's the Oakmont neighborhood, the golf club there. Wild Oak is another neighborhood there. That's a new evacuation area this morning, and that is where KRON 4's Will Tran is standing by now with an update on conditions there. Will?
This is an evacuation area because homes are not too far off from the fire over my shoulder. The homes are maybe a quarter mile from this location. This is a gated community off of White Oak Drive. They told these people, get out of here. We don't need you to risk your lives or get in the way of emergency responders. The fire continues to burn on this ridge line. It's not being attacked in the overnight hours. They're just monitoring the situation, trying to corral it from spreading in the overnight hours. Once the sun comes up, then they will throw their resources at the fire. But there are firefighters along the ridge line, this one and many others, just to monitor the situation. There are also many fire trucks parked in people's driveways ready to jump on any possible embers that fly from this location on top of the homes. Now, it is a dark community. The power appears to be out. There is a curfew in place. Getting to this location, only emergency responders as well as the media are allowed to move along the way. And even for us to get through certain points, they have checkpoints that we have to tell them what we're doing so they know where we are in case anything should happen. It is not windy at this time. Definitely still smoky. I can smell it as soon as you step out of your car. It hits you like a 2x4 in your face, but not as bad as what we saw yesterday. They will have a news conference in about 2.5 hours from now. They always have it at around 7 to 7:30 in the morning to talk about what happened, to get some new numbers from their crews up on the hills. We do know right now 1,500 homes burned, and that includes commercial buildings burned or badly burned or destroyed, and 65,000 acres among the 5 fires. But we do know those numbers expected to go up. Hopefully the number of fatalities will not go up, but it's a very tenuous situation. The fire still burns behind me. I can hear crackling. So the wood is being burned, obviously unobstructed, but if they should need it and if the winds pick up, the aircraft is available to them to drop fire retardant down to the flames. James and Daria.
Yeah, actually, and not only are they going to use aircraft to fight the fire, Will, but I know that they did several rescues. Some people were evacuated from like the hills of Napa by chopper in the dark.
Landed on neighborhood streets to try and get people out.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. And how close would you say you are to these flames? Because, you know, with video on TV, it looks like you're a little too close.
I would think if I had to hike up there, it might take me about 15 minutes or so. It looks like there's a dip right behind me, and then you go straight up. So it looks closer probably on TV.
Yeah.
But me, and that's a great question, Daria, but where I'm standing, I would think maybe 15 minutes or so, or 20 minutes to get to the ridge line. You can see the top, no doubt about it, and the homes are right in front of me. So the homes are maybe about a quarter mile from my location. It's a gated community. I'm actually standing on, Yoli, if you can move the camera to the left, I'm actually standing on a trail, and you can see cars have been down here before. So just in case the fire department needs to rush here and attack the flames with their fire trucks, it is available to them, as this seems to be a road to get to the ridgeline, Daria.
Did you talk to many people and get a lot of stories yesterday? Because I know you were actually busy following the flames, but did you get to talk to a lot of people in those neighborhoods?
I talked to many people, and the empathy is incredible because they're all in the same boat. There was those who lost their homes, but they came back. Excuse me, those homes are still intact. Mm-hmm. They came back, and they had nothing but empathy for those who lost their homes. Sometimes, Daria, you know it's not fair. My home is in place, but your home right next door is gone for no rhyme or reason. It just is what it is. So they came back. They were empathetic. They were sharing their stories. A lot of people, they were banging on each other's doors. The fire department was so busy that they could not physically go around the neighborhoods with their bullhorns or knock on doors to tell people to evacuate. In many cases, it was the neighbors who went around telling each other, let's get out of here. The chilling part, they did it when flames were all around them. It was windy, it was smoky, it was the flames were high. They said, and we interviewed them live, a lot of them took about 20 minutes just to go a quarter mile from their home to the nearby street because visibility was so poor and it was bumper to bumper with people who had to get out, Daria.
All right. Thanks a lot, Will Tran. And we'll continue our coverage because I don't want to talk about it too much in past tense. It's still zero containment. The flames are still, as you could see behind Will, actively racing up and down hills, and they are threatening neighborhoods.
You know, and it's like what we were saying yesterday. It's kind of surreal to think of a wildfire burning through such an urban landscape where you've got homes and cars and businesses like the Kmart that went down in flames. We had that Hilton Hotel that burned.
The sign is left.
The sign is left. But it was burning all yesterday, and firefighters were saying they're just going to have to let it burn itself out. We've got Maureen Kelly actually out in front of that very hotel this morning with an update on the situation there. Maureen, good morning.
Good morning, James. Yeah, I'm standing in front right now in front of the Fountain Grove Inn. That's what you see right behind me here, or what's left of it, really. There's just some stone pillars, some timber left behind, and it's just in front of it, just absolute charred earth. Now, behind that, if you can see in the very far distance, you can see some embers, some small flames, and some smoke in the distance. That is the Hilton, which is still burning at this hour. I mean, obviously not a huge fire, just a little bit of remains there, but that is still going on. There's no active firefight here. They're just letting it burn out. We are seeing fire crews going back and forth here around the area, lights and sirens still going on. So obviously still a very active scene here. Now, there is some video that we have of the Hilton burning last night. Let's roll some of that video. You can see it. I was actually here across the way from where that fire was burning and saw that happening, and it was really quite tremendous to be. I was on the other side of the freeway, closer to where the Kmart is and where the gun store was on fire, and to see both sides of 101 with huge plumes of smoke and fireballs coming off from the side. It was really quite something to see. Now, back out here live, I can tell you that it still smells very much like smoke. I'm very happy to say that I was able to beg a mask off one of the other media crews here, so the air is a little bit better than yesterday, but it is still it still feels kind of heavy. I can see a little bit of microscopic ash in the air, and it still smells very, very heavy of smoke, but I kind of wish I had one of these yesterday because I have a bit of a cough today.
Yeah, actually,
Daria, James.
I had seen reports of about 200 people overall that had to be treated, some for burns, some for smoke inhalation, and it's just, you know, forget about us complaining that it's smoky closer into the San Francisco radius of the Bay Area, but out there, just unbearable. And Maureen, how is it this morning as far as you said there are hot spots? All of that, no one can get near where you are, right? For safety and for looting, is that right?
That's right. So when the Bicentennial Way exit off of northbound 101 is closed right now by CHP. I had to flash my media pass to get by there, and then also the road right here to get immediately to the area of the Fountain Grove Inn and the Hilton. So yeah, they're definitely, there's security out here keeping the public a distance from this.
Okay, very good. Thanks a lot. Maureen Kelly reporting live, one of our team of reporters that are out again this morning as the fires are at 0% containment right now.
And she was talking about how she can still see some of that ash floating around in the air. When do you think we'll start to get some relief from all that smoke in the air?
Probably until not tomorrow. So probably this kind of, you know, this campfire smell that we're getting elsewhere, that's kind of still trapped because we're not having a lot of winds today. That's good news. But still, we need to kind of clean out the atmosphere, and that's not going to probably happen until tomorrow.
So is that haze smoke?
That's Berkeley. We're looking at Berkeley over towards, you can see just hovering right over the bay like this. So again, nothing to kind of clean things out for us. I'm waiting for the soundings to come out to see how that's working to help us vertically when the sun joins us a little bit. Temperatures right now, we're at 60 going on San Francisco with San Rafael at 61. Cooler up here in the North Bay. Because of the banking off of the dry atmosphere and not much the way of winds, temperatures kind of went into a little bit of a free fall like that. That was not the case, obviously, Sunday night into Monday morning. The temperature change we have this morning still in the teens behind where we were from yesterday. Now, the air is moistening up a little bit, noticeably so this morning, but so we'll probably improve on that front probably by tomorrow. A look at winds, a little bit of a breeze at work. However, they will be somewhat modest, certainly compared to yesterday's performance. The air quality not improved improved. Unhealthy for sensitive groups, North Bay, Coast and Bay, East Bay and the South Bay in the moderate category. For the ready for school forecast, calling for 82 by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, pick up upper 70s to some lower 80s in and around the immediate bay, it looks like. And just a quick check with our high temperatures forecast today. Still some 80s on the board here. Napa maybe upper 70s, already cooling down, but what we're watching next is another bout with some winds. That will be onshore. I'll have more details on that. Right now, checking out traffic detail. Robin, what's happening?
All right, it's definitely picking up out there. We have some crowding in the cash lanes at the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza. Here's a live look, and it's backing up. It's starting to stretch toward the end or the middle of the administration parking lot, but this is still considered a pretty good commute, so no big hot spots, no problems, and it's only 8 minutes from the maze over to Fremont Street. Crews are clearing a crash on the lower deck eastbound before the tunnel. That's being pushed out of the right lane, but it's not causing any delays so far on the lower deck around the Skyway as you head out of San Francisco. Here's 92, more brake lights heading to the peninsula, but it's a quiet ride, 13 minutes from Hayward over to San Mateo. And checking back in on Traffic Tracker, looks like we're pretty much still at the limit around the Bay Area. 580 west, south 680, 880 south, all looking good, and 237, 6 minutes now to head west from Milpitas over to Sunnyvale. So we're off to a great start. James, Daria.
So there's still smoke hanging over the Bay Area, active, 5 fires still burning, and more than 60,000 acres burned. One of the areas that actually saw lesser acreage but way more damage to homes and businesses is Santa Rosa.
And these are some of the newest pictures into our newsroom showing just a first-hand look from the firefighters' perspective as they were trying to douse out the hot spots inside the shells of what were homes and businesses. This is what it was like on the front lines as folks were evacuated out of the area and firefighters moved in. In many cases, they just could not save some of the structures they were trying to protect, but they did their best to keep it from spreading through other parts of town. We will continue to follow the latest. In fact, we'll be back with more coverage here in just a minute, so stay with us.
It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I got a phone call if I was okay, and I didn't know why until they told me, well, the area where is your house, it's burned down, everything in that area. Are you in a safe place? And I said, yeah, I'm with my sister. Yeah, everything is gone. Everything. There's nothing.
Back out here live, you can see that fire in the distance. Just to give you an idea of where we are, I want to zoom out because Highway 101 is below us. Then you can see some of those cars along Highway 101. You look in the distance there, that is the Kaiser Permanente Medical Center located in this area. And I just want to show you as I turn to the right, you can see the heavy police presence out here this evening, all of those different officers. And we're not just talking about officers here in Santa Rosa, but there have been officers from all over the Bay Area who are up here, and they are helping out to make sure that things here go as smooth as possible. But you can see all of the different vehicles off in the distance. So yes, firefighters are very busy, but officers are very busy as well. And I just want to pan back over to show you that Hilton Hotel again, which tonight, here we are, hours later, a day later, and it is still burning right now. Steve and Pam, now back to you in the studio.
You're right in the thick of things there, JR. And for people who are possibly just tuning in right now, I want to remind them that Kaiser Permanente had been evacuated earlier for fear of them being subject to the kind of flames that you're showing us with the Hilton right there. We know that the new Sutter Health was kind of brand new facility there in the Santa Rosa area. That one got evacuated.
5:16 right now. Let's go back to our breaking news coverage. What is left of many neighborhoods in Santa Rosa? Very little, and it looks a lot like this as that fire that was in Santa Rosa hopscotched from neighborhood to neighborhood, where these embers would fly in some cases miles away and ignite other areas.
And this is actually the latest video out of Napa too. So you're
Napa.
Getting a picture now of what we saw in Santa Rosa in our last segment. Now in Napa, it's the same shots. home after home burned to the ground, in many cases still burning this morning as hot spots are still flaring up from time to time, and that's what firefighters are spending their overnight hours doing, trying to stamp out as many of these as possible so it doesn't continue to spread.
And Napa is another place that suffered mortality, as did Sonoma County as well. Overall, these fires have so far killed 10 people, but they do expect the death toll to rise. There are about 100 people missing this morning, and they haven't been able to go back into some of the burned out areas to see if maybe more lives were claimed in the flames.
We should also point out that there is a boil water advisory in place right now for Napa, and all that burned out property you saw in the videos is the reason why. There's a lot of contaminants now in the ground. And so if you live on any of these roads that you see on your screen, Hagen Road, Woodland Drive, Sayre Drive, Holly Court, Old Coach Road, you're being asked to boil your water before you consume it in any way, whether you're cooking with it or drinking it out of the tap. They just want to make sure there's nothing in there that's going to hurt you, so they want you to boil it first.
And in neighboring Sonoma, where Mark Dannon lives, I do want to pick up the story. If you left us yesterday, and we talked to Mark several times live on the air about the fact that he had to evacuate his neighborhood. Some of the neighbors' homes were lost. We don't know. He's like so many others, hundreds of other people this morning that are in shelters or with friends and can't go back into their neighborhoods to see if their home is standing or not.
So we're going to keep in touch with him and let you know what the situation is there. And he's, as Aria said, he's living out the nightmare that so many other people are living this morning. And here in these pictures that we continue to show you is what's left of a lot of neighborhoods